fun today?
Yeah.
Are you learning lots of new tools?
Yes.
Cool. Like all of a sudden, all this emotion is coming up in me, and that's my vision and my dream for you, is that you have tools and that you see really truly how amazing you are. So my topic is about self-love and worthiness, because how many of us over your lifetime have struggled with self-love and lack of worthiness? Like, you hear the voices in your head that tell you you're not, you shouldn't, you can't, you won't, all of that stuff that goes on in your head. How many of you have those voices? Yeah, we struggle with those. So today, in this short time, I'm going to give you a few tools. And I worked really hard to come up with an acronym because I just wanted an acronym. It's like, because acronyms are fun, right? So I have an acronym. I'm kind of excited about that. And then I'm going to give you a self-love empathy process. And then I'm also going to give you some action items that you get to do and take home with you. Which is kind of how I do all of my client sessions, is there's usually a little bit of conversation, and then there's an experiential something, and then I usually give you an action item to go home and do, because education is nothing unless you apply it. Yes? So I'm all about helping you learn to apply those things. So our acronym for today is FAST, because we're learning fast tools, right? FAST. So, and I'm going to flip back and forth because there's a couple things that I tell clients a lot. But FAST stands for fact check. So one of the things I often tell clients is your healing is not found in your story. We tell stories. How many of us love stories? We tell stories. Aren't stories engaging? And they keep us wrapped in the moment, and they're really fun, and sometimes they give us warm fuzzies. But what about the stories in our heads? What are those like? Are the stories in our heads kind of ugly? And yet we tell them over and over. How many of you have been to a horror movie or a terrible movie that you left the theater and went, oh my gosh, that was really terrible? Did you pay to go back and see it again? No. And yet you do that every single day up here. We tell the same story over and over, and oftentimes it's a horror story, or it's a story that brings up traumatic emotions or brings up negative feelings. I want to remind you that you are the producer, and you have a movie theater up here that you can use to your advantage. It can either bring up emotions that are traumatic, it can bring up emotions that cause pain, or you can choose to produce a movie that brings up emotions of love and compassion and worthiness and excitement and fun. If any of you saw my booth at the last Expo, or you've seen some of the others, one of the big questions, or even on the top of the header of my website, one of the big questions is, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? And what kind of a story are you telling yourself? So fact check your stories. So how many in this room have grown up in a big family of more than 2 or 3? And if you have an older sibling, I'm the youngest of 5, and my older siblings, they would tell a story, and I would be, no, it wasn't at all like that. It was like this. And they go, no, it was like this. And I'd say, no, but it was like this, right? Different perspectives. What were the true facts? Got to check with mom. Mom knows what really happened, right? Because the kids have different opinions, especially when they're 8 and 10 years apart. Each of them have different stories. How many of us have told a story in our heads and then it's just something that we've assumed or we've made up stories? I know that person doesn't like me, right? We've made up all kinds of stories. One little story that I'll tell really quick on relationship issues is I was in my office working on something late at night. My husband's cooking dinner. He doesn't like it when I work late. And I was hearing him getting angry in the kitchen. He was swearing and throwing things around. He was getting kind of frustrated. The story I was telling myself was, he's upset that I'm working late. Fact check. I go in the kitchen and I ask. So I'm just checking in with you. I can hear that you're upset in here in the kitchen. Are you upset at me because I'm working late and you're really missing me and wanting me to be with you? He goes, no, it's dark in here. I'm getting old. I have old eyes. I can't see the food I'm cooking. I'm frustrated with the light in our kitchen. Fact check. Don't believe the stories. Don't believe the stories in your own head. A stands for act as if. What do I mean by that? Well, the question I ask my clients is, how do you want to feel? The second question I ask is, tell me a time when you felt that way. So emotions are a memory of past events. So somewhere in your lifetime, you've felt everything. You felt sad, you felt angry, you felt happy, you felt joyful, you felt all kinds of things. So when I ask the question, remember a time when, then we create the story. We produce the movie. We act as if it's here and now. And then we create more that we add to it. Maybe we want to add music. Maybe we want to add a smell. Maybe we want to add the kitten. Maybe we want to add a person. Whatever we want to add to our movie. And then you act as if it's happening now. The next one, S, stands for self-talk. How many of you talk to yourselves? Do you know it's actually a sign of intelligence? Yeah. Yes, exactly. So there's the point. It's like we want to say constructive things to ourselves. So for me, it keeps me in line. It keeps me focused. It keeps me doing the thing that's in front of me instead of getting squirrely off onto something else. Yes? So talking to yourself is a good way to keep yourself on track. We have over 3,000 thoughts per minute, over 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day that just come in our mind. Challenge your thoughts. Do not believe every one of them that comes in. Some of them are just random, and some of them are thoughts from somebody else, or just words that someone else said that I'm remembering and thinking that it's my thoughts when it was really just a memory of somebody else's thoughts, right? So we can choose our self-talk and install new beliefs. That will actually be one of the action items at the end here, is to help you choose your thoughts for the day. The last one is tell the new story. Oftentimes when I do a session with a client to help them shift their emotions or move from one state to another state, they will want to go back and tell the old story because the old story is familiar. As humans, we like familiar because it's easy and comfortable, and change is hard. Whether it's moving from one city to another city, whether it's, whatever it is, change is hard. Whether it's changing our diet, whether it's buying a new car. We even get really attached to our cars, don't we? How many get attached to our cars and give them names? and all kinds of things. And then we invest more money into our car than we actually need to when it really was dead a long time ago and we should have traded up, but we love our car. Just recently heard that story. So it's in my mind currently. But change is difficult. How comfortable are you with status quo? Are you so comfortable with status quo that you're unwilling to be a little uncomfortable for a moment so that you can have what you actually really want? Sometimes the way through is through a little bit of uncomfortable things. So when a client has felt this great transformation and they're feeling wonderful, they still want to tell the old story. Partly because it's the story they're familiar with. But I invite you to remember that whenever you've had a transformational experience, tell the new story. Don't go back and tell the old one. Because when you tell the old story, it's just re-imprinting back in you the old pattern and the old habit. Tell the new story. So there are basically 3 steps to self-love. So I teach a workshop, and I gave all of you a little handout there that has a workshop coming up. And if you have a pen and want to write this down, Empower 40 will be the coupon code to give you a $40 off for that self-love workshop. And and not just this time, but I usually repeat that every so often. So I think the coupon code will be valid through the end of March. So it's about learning to love yourself. It's a full day experience because experience gets things in your bones. It's a Brene Brown quote. Which most of the work from this comes from Brene Brown and Kristen Neff, who are both researchers in Texas. Kristen Neff researches self-compassion, and Brene Brown is a shame researcher. Shame, according to Brene Brown, is basically self-judgment plus isolation plus over-identifying with your story equals shame. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something wrong. So oftentimes when we're struggling with worthiness and self-love issues, there's often a component of deep shame. And shame can be shifted by shifting your language and by getting connected with other people. Because remember, it's self-judgment, so that would be a language thing in the story we're telling in our head. Isolation, and over-identifying with the story. Those are the 3 components that Brene Brown says are the major components that equal shame. So shame cannot live in the light. And when you acknowledge it and see it for what it is, you can shift it. So self-love basically has 4 components. One is awareness. And by awareness, I mean the observer. I'm going to write all these 3 down, and then I'm going to go somewhere else. The second one is this hurts. Oops, put a T in there, then an S. The third one is it's common to humanity. Other people hurt. Awareness, basically, of what is how I put this, or being the observer. Stepping away from the story. And then 4 is an action. Compassion, when you look at the research that Kristen Neff has done with self-compassion, the major component, the major difference between pity and compassion is the action. It's taking an action step to do something. So when it comes to loving yourself, it's the same thing. It's taking an action. It's giving yourself permission to love yourself. It's bringing in gratitude. It's doing something. I didn't say I was a good speller, so whatever, or handwriter. So those are the basic 4 components of self-compassion. Awareness means stepping out of the story. Your healing is not found in the story. Telling the story over and over and over again just makes things worse. Or the he did, or the she did, or I'm sure that they don't like me, or it's probably this, or probably that. If you stick to the facts of what can a movie camera see that is undeniable, what is observable with the natural eye without the judgment, without the criticism, without the negativity, without making it mean something. Your brain is, about 80% of your brain is like, most of it's unconscious. And it really wants to keep you safe. It loves to categorize things and label things, make things mean things. So an event happens, and your brain wants to say, that means this, so I can file it over here. So here's how my visual, I'm a visual person. It's like you have an incoming secretary, and things happen out here, and the secretary's at the front desk, and she goes, I know how to label that. That means nobody likes me, and I'm gonna file it over here. Next thing happens, oh, that means you don't know anything, and I'm gonna file that over here. She labels it so she can put it in the filing cabinet so she can find those resources later. If you tell her not to label it the same way, don't make the same old stories, don't make things mean things. It doesn't mean anything. It just is. If you stick with what is and be just a simple observer instead of making a story around it. 2, acknowledge and lean into things. By that I mean, when strong emotions come up, we have a tendency to constrict and hide and get smaller because, oh, it hurts. But if we open up and lean into the emotion and acknowledge it and name it for what it is, and give it space and breathe into it. Ouch. And ask some questions around it. What is there to learn here? What would I like to have here? We often ask, at this point, is where we often ask wrong questions. We ask questions like, what's wrong here? Why did this happen to me? But if instead we ask questions that are outcomes that we want, how would I like this to be different? What would I like to feel? How would I really like to be? Those kind of questions pull you forward and expand your openness. So in this space, when it hurts, expand out. Get bigger. Expand who you are. Thirdly, know that you're not alone. And when I first asked the question at the beginning of this, that how many of you have struggled with self-love and worthiness issues, every single one of you raise your hand. You're not alone. We all struggle with a lot of the same things. I'm not alone. This is common to humanity. And then the third thing is action item is, what would I like to feel? What can I be grateful for? What is working here? And when you ask those questions and expand into it, you will feel the difference. So your 4 action items. 1, in the morning, first thing every morning. So in the morning, you want to choose 4 thoughts or mantras, whatever, write them down. And consciously install those thoughts throughout your day. You can put them on cards. I remember when I was going through my divorce, it was a very tough time. There was a lot of things happening. And I had one thing that I wrote on a card, and I just repeated it every day. And every time strong emotions came up, or I wanted to go into judgment of the circumstances, or fear or anxiety of what it was, I would read my mantra for the day. At that point in my life, it happened to be a Bible verse. And so my mantra was, He will keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. He will keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. He will keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. And as I just repeated that over and over and over again, I was choosing my thoughts, being the producer of my thoughts, not believing the ugly thoughts that were coming in, not buying into them, but getting past them. Your second one is in the evening. So every evening before bed, take 10 minutes to have a gratitude practice. So your gratitude practice can be just lying in bed thinking about things you're grateful for. Your gratitude practice could be writing it down. It could be whatever works for you. It could be a meditation time if you wanted to sit, however you do your thing. It could be walking and thinking of what you're grateful for. But reflect back over your day and incorporate a gratitude practice. The third one is remember to expand out. Not to constrict. Actually, expanding out opens your focus because your brain stops thinking. It slows it down. So when you think about expanding out, you can think of the edges of you and your energy and just kind of slowly, as one little bit at a time, like imagine expanding yourself, your energy out to the edges of this room. And then imagine expanding your energy out into this entire city. And then imagine expanding yourself all the way out in entire Salt Lake City, into the United States, and all the way out into the universe. So just keep imagining expanding yourself out, and notice there's no end to you. It opens up your mind and keeps you from going into story and drama. The fourth one is to become the conscious observer. What would it be like if you could just step away from your old story and choose to produce a new story of what you do want? And instead of making things mean things, or categorizing them, or labeling them, or judging them, or predicting them, or whatever we're going to do about it, just notice the facts of what is. Interesting. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. It's just a point of view. And become the conscious observer, and then choose your thoughts. So I'd love to invite you, if you're willing, to join me for that self-compassion day. I do only have 15 spots. And then I will repeat that class again. But that workshop is a full day experiential, includes lunch. You'll learn practices and strategies to shift tough emotions. You'll learn some mindfulness tools. We'll learn why your inner critic is actually there and why it's beneficial, because it does have a purpose. So you can use it to your advantage, and how to calm your inner critic and understand myths and stereotypes around self-compassion. So the discount code for that is EMPOWER40, and that will give you a $40 discount on that thing. So thank you, everyone.
Any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Tina's got a few more minutes, so if anybody has any questions.
Yes.
I do, or I believe in this, but when you say to people think you're pretty, like Louise Hayes's mirror therapy and stuff, and stuff. And when you trying to explain that to people that are having that, if you were to explain that to someone, how would you do that? Because when I try to tell people that are having low self-esteem, best thing is to, and then I can't.
So you're giving advice.
Yes. Just
how do you like it when people give you advice? So I teach another course that's around language. That's I call it Brave Conversations, but it's a way of interacting with someone so they actually hear you. No one likes hearing advice. No one wants to be told what to do. Your person is resisting and getting defensive because you're telling them what to do.
When they ask for it?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah. So how can you
turn it around.
How can you flip that into a question?
What do they really want to know?
Exactly.
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
What do they really want? What's the basis of their question?
Right. So when you come to a really understanding of the person and start using their language, so yes, this is another skill I teach in one of my other courses on how to communicate. Like the words that come out here is where relationship happens. And habitually in the world, we have language that is completely disconnecting. Advice giving, consoling, offering pity, storytelling, one-upping, all the stuff that we do. It's just the habitual way we communicate, and it's just the way it is. But it's not connecting.
So they just want space to be held.
Yes.
I think it goes
Everybody wants space to be held. And when you offer that space to hold them first, and then ask them questions and help them find their own answers.
It goes back to your other page, which had the humanity in common.
Yes, self-compassion. You have to come here first. Notice, so you're the observer for them. And then you notice, that must hurt. That's providing empathy. That's not sympathy. Oh, that hurts. And then it's, I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you. And then ask for the action step. It's basically the same 4 steps in language communication. It's observation. What are you feeling? What is the person missing? So I ask the question, what's missing or what's present? Like there's no right or wrong emotions. If you're feeling happy, then something's present for you. If you're feeling sad, then something's missing for you. And if something's missing, what's missing?
So after holding space, those would be the questions.
The question to ask them would be, what do you really want? Like what she said, what do you really want? What do you really need? What do you really value?
Some of the stuff that you were doing at the beginning reminded me of the Byron Katie. Because hers is so, what is like her 3 questions that she's...
The turnarounds?
Yeah, the 6 questions.
So it's basically, you're the observer first and then turn it around. Yes? Yeah. So a lot of healers and teachers, everybody teaches a lot of the same things. We just have our own different language or our own spin on it. When you've internalized it, then you can put your own little spin on it.
Principles. That's why they
yes.
They're common to.
They're
common to humanity.
It is.
The common search, or they're the common inquiry.
Yeah.
And when you find that, when you're actually speaking, like you said, as the awareness that you have, and then you're actually common to the humanity, and then it's where do they want to go with it?
Right.
They want to stay in pain, that's fine.
Because in here, there's always, what are you feeling or what are you needing? You know, well, this is, wait, this is what you're feeling. Whoops. And this is what you need or value. Because this is where conflict happens. When people have different needs or values, and we all have rules around our values too. So, and if our rules aren't communicated well, then we end up in conflict. So resolving conflicts becomes very easy when you understand these 4 steps. So that's all we have time for. So I invite you to connect with me because I have I teach a lot of these courses, or connect with me individually and we can talk more.